Welcome to Deep Thought. With power comes responsibility. Now, I had to leave the word great out of there because I didn't need Marvel coming to sue me or anything. But with power comes responsibility. That's a real thing. Now, in my last podcast on this channel, I talked about a shaper of culture is powerful. That's why, I mean, honestly, and that's why you get artists who can get so much money because they can shape culture. But on the other hand, you got to think, if you in that position, you're very powerful. I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to use myself for an example. I'm shaping something. And I consciously know that I'm shaping something. Right? Because anytime men come back to me and say, hey, Rom, I'm hitting the gym now, or Rom, I'm getting into this business now. That's powerful. That means you're influencing people. You shaping their behavior. You're cultivating their behavior. If you realize you have that ability to shape someone's actions, to shape the culture, the personal culture they live in, or if you even go beyond what I'm doing and you can shape an entire culture. Like, for example, musicians. Music is powerful. One musician can shape a lot. You know, there's been revolutions created based off of something a musician did. Seriously, that's a powerful thing, you know, because it shapes, it's whole, like every music form, it shapes something. In fact, if you're going to talk about culture at all, you always have to put the music into it. That's a very important thing. Or a writer. You know, think about how powerful a writer is. Think about how powerful a writer is. You know, like in one of the books that I've written, it was called The Sankophans. It's a speculative fiction novella. So it's very short. But I had some people, I wrote it, and it was actually a legitimate scholar who actually referenced it in a nonfiction book of his. He actually referenced it. I was like, wow. And then I remember I met a young lady who read it, and she said, you know, your story had me crying because I presented a vision, you know? Or let me use a bigger example. How many people have heard of Ayn Rand? She wrote the monumental book Atlas Shrugged. Atlas Shrugged, I read somewhere the Atlas Shrugged sold more than the Bible. Let me say that again. Atlas Shrugged sold more than the Bible. And the book was actually provided a basis for a philosophical movement called objectivism. And objectivism actually led to the libertarian political party, the libertarian philosophy, which, if you really look at it, some of those ideas seeped into the present day Republican Party. Some of them, not totally, right? So a writer who wrote a work of fiction, it was a long work, but it was still a work of fiction. She actually shaped a culture. You have people who live their lives according to what she wrote. That's how powerful it is. Like any libertarians, especially, they can attest to this. And like I said, some of the ideas from it has actually creeped into the Republican Party, you know. And in fact, you do have a libertarian political party. And I remember there was a comic book store I went to where the owners of it, they practiced libertarianism. Even though they sold regular comics, they did have some political stuff around there, right? So a writer can actually shape a culture, right? But that's a responsibility. I'll go back to myself. There's a lot of stuff I could put in a book or even talk about in a video that, let's just say it would help out a lot of men, but it would also create a negative situation. It would create a very negative situation, which I would have to blame myself for. Like people look for some secrets or what could they do, but one thing I recognize, there's a lot of people who use it in a negative way. So I was like, can't say it. I don't talk about it. And please, like some guys here, don't hit me up privately. Ask me, well, what was it? No, don't ask me. I'm not going to tell you. There's some things I could discuss. Only way I discuss it is if I know the person personally and I know they can handle the responsibility, because it's a power that comes, it's great responsibility, especially if you're talking about male female relationships. There's a lot of stuff I don't say that goes deeper. Let's put it like that. There's a lot of stuff, for everything I give out publicly or even put on an on-demand video or say in some public space, there's a lot of stuff I don't say, because I would be the one responsible for it. See, when you have the ability to create an idea, to create a thought, to cultivate how someone will behave, there's a responsibility for it. That responsibility is on you, the person with that power. Like every single writer, let me go back to writers. Writers are so powerful. Like a lot of people don't realize that when I was in college, my major was history, but my minor was politics. And the majority of classes I took for politics had to do with revolution and development. Well, mainly revolution. Usually when in places where they have a coup or overthrow of the government, rather, the first thing that the people who overthrow it do usually go after the writers, the press. People don't realize how powerful that is, because it can shape ideas. Indeed, that's why in this world, the media is so powerful. That's why control of the media is so powerful. You can shape ideas. But when you're in that position, you have great power. You got a responsibility, because you affecting how someone will cultivate their behavior, how they will live, the things they will do. You're ultimately affecting their actions. Now, if you can somehow influence them to do like meaningful things, well, that's great. And there's still a responsibility with that too. Now, it's more of a benefit, but you still got a responsibility, because even then you still got to, if you're putting out something good, you got to make sure it don't get tainted. You got to be very clear on what you're doing. But then there's a lot of people, they can put out something negative. There's been entire political movements and spiritual movements based off of works of fiction. But that's a cultural thing. You got that power. There's been stuff based off someone doing music a certain way. Look how many things have been affected just in the African American community by gangster rap. Because I remember when it first got big, before that, it was more of conscious raising. It was a piece. Like in the DC area alone, that was probably the murder rate was going down. People were acting. It was like a lot of peace. All of a sudden, you have something that's putting another energy out there. And see, that's what the artist does. The artist or someone in a position is more like a musician. They actually changing stuff. That's powerful. That is power. And so if you can change something, if you can move, if you can do something that can change the people, you got responsibility for how that is used. You got to think about it. Like I said, myself personally, there's a lot of stuff I don't say publicly. I don't even put it out privately, because my feeling is if I say the wrong thing privately, that person could pass it on to 100,000 other people. But I would be responsible for it. So always understand that. The shape of a culture is powerful, very powerful, but then has a responsibility. They got to think about their actions. They got to think about what they do, what they write about, what they talk about, everything. So I want y'all to really think about that and know that with power comes responsibility. Peace and blessings, everyone.